Hello, this is Dana again, and this is a 30-second segment of the Master the Bible Today series, a snapshot of the book of 2 Chronicles. According to Jewish tradition, Ezra wrote the book of 2 Chronicles to all Israel to unify the nation around true worship of God by showing his standard for judging kings, God's standard. The righteous kings of Judah and the religious revivals under their rule are highlighted, and the sins of the evil kings are exposed. A key verse is in chapter 7, verse 14, which reads, quote, "If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land," unquote. We say, how could anyone worship an object? Idols are for the naive and the superstitious. But we return home to our idols of wealth, prestige, and self-fulfillment. Remember, if we put anything in God's place, we worship it, despite what we profess with our lips. Our experience parallels biblical Israel's. God chose them to represent him on earth, but too often we, like they did, forget the truth and our calling, stumbling blindly after idols as the neighboring nations did. Then prophets, priests, and judgment would push them back too abruptly to God, the one true God. 2 Chronicles relates this sordid history of Judah's corrupt and idolatrous kings. Here and there, a good king would arise in Judah, and for a time there would be a revival. But the downward spiral would continue, ending in chaos, destruction, and captivity. We need to learn the lessons, determined to get rid of any idols in our life, and to worship God alone. Throughout the reigns of 20 kings, the nation of Judah wavered between obedience to God and apostasy, which is an act of refusing to continue to follow, obey, recognize, and be loyal to religious faith. The reigning king's response to God determined the spiritual climate of the nation and whether or not God would send judgment upon his people. Our personal history is shaped by our response to God. Just as Judah's failure to repent brought them captivity in Babylon, so the abuse of our high calling by sinful living will ultimately bring us catastrophe and destruction. So 2 Chronicles continues the history of 1 Chronicles. David's son Solomon was inaugurated as king. Solomon built a magnificent temple in Jerusalem, thus fulfilling his father's wish and last request, chapters 2 through 5. Solomon enjoyed a peaceful and prosperous reign for 40 years that made him world famous. Peace was the result of the people being unified and loyal to God and his law. Only God can bring true peace. God is greater than any enemy, army, or nation. Just as Israel's faithful response was key to her peace and survival as a nation, so our obedience to God as individuals and nations is vital to peace today. Solomon achieved much in business and government, but most important, he was the man God used to build the glorious temple. This beautiful building was the religious center of the nation. It symbolized the unity of all the tribes, the presence of God among them, and the nation's high calling. As Christians meet together to worship God, we experience the presence of God in a way that no individual believer could. For the real dwelling place of God is the people of God. The body, the church of Christ, is God's temple. We may achieve great things in life, but we must not neglect any effort that will help nurture God's people or bring others into God's kingdom. It is easy for us to get the wrong perspective on what's really important in life. After Solomon died, his son Rehoboam assumed the throne, and his immaturity divided the kingdom. He led the Israelites into idolatry, and the nation suffered. But remember, whenever the king and his people sincerely prayed to God for deliverance, and they turned from their sinful ways, God delivered them. God still answers prayers today. If we are alert, we can pray for God's guidance before we get deeper into trouble. We must constantly commit ourselves to obeying God in our lives and society. In 586 BC, the Babylonians completely destroyed Solomon's beautiful temple. The formal worship of God was ended. Why? The Israelites had abandoned God. As a result, God brought judgment upon his people, and they were carried into captivity. Although our disobedience may not be as blatant as Israel's, quite often our commitment to God is insincere and casual. When we forget that all our power, wisdom, and wealth come from God and not ourselves, we are in danger of the same spiritual and moral collapse that Israel experienced. As you read 2 Chronicles, you will get a vivid glimpse of the southern kingdom, Judah's history, and you will see the tragic results of idolatry. Worship God alone. Thank you.